A huge moo to the herd, and welcome to episode 12 of our Gregicality Skyblock playthrough. So it's been a while since I've done an episode. Unfortunately, I managed to get a winter cold, which caused me a very sore throat to the point where I lost my voice. So hence the reason I haven't been able to do any videos, but I am recovered enough to do more videos. I've still got a little bit of it lurking around, but get in there quite quickly, hopefully. So the way we left the last episode, I had a problem with my blast furnace. So despite the fact I'd hooked everything up and got all things sorted, it wouldn't run. Couldn't get the power to it. So I asked for help in the comments and such like, and several of you offered solutions. So a big thanks to Rich Steve in the comments, and Zalgo and Dakao in the Discord, who basically told me, move my buffer closer. So that's what I've done. So we've got my power up here. I've created a battery buffer directly underneath the column for my machines here, and I've created two battery buffers here that go straight into the energy hatch. Now, their batteries are fully charged, so they will run, but we're obviously not going to be able to produce enough power to run everything constantly. But it does mean that my blast furnace will run, and I can prove that by, if I go into my input bus, take, 4 pieces of aluminium dust, and get my soft hammer, whack it, and it's now running perfectly. If we go down underneath into the crawl space, you will see that the batteries are depleting, but there should be enough charge there to do those 4 pieces of aluminium. So once again, thank you very much for the help. Much appreciated. So what's the plan for today? Well, several things. First of all, if we look at our quests, a couple of things I've done. Sorry, I forgot to mention. I've updated the mod pack, so we've got a few things, and one of those things is one of the things I'm going to touch on in this episode. But I've also separately updated the Gregicality module itself, purely because the latest updates weren't included in the pack update, and I needed a fix for the greenhouse. So the greenhouse before, we were putting in our organic fertilizer dust and our carrots with our water, and we were still just getting one at a time. The latest version of Gregicality has updated the greenhouse. You'll now notice it has 3 slots. You basically get a program circuit with configuration 2, drop that in there, and that will start giving you your 3 carrots. So that's really great for us, because it means that for one of our future projects, which might be this episode, probably going to be the next episode, we can start using that for methane. The other thing I've done is this little bonsai tree was happily churning away, producing all sorts of wood and everything else. I had a ton of apples, which when I looked up what I could use them for, aside from eating, I could run those through the centrifuge, which I have done. That's what this wooden chest and the conveyor module's for. And that gives me a load of methane as well. So we have plenty of methane for our future stuff. But what I'd like to do today is all centered around circuits. So the mod pack introduced something that I asked for, and I'm very pleased to have said we've got the crafting calculator. Now you can actually make the crafting calculator. Don't want to use GEO's cheat mode. That's what I want. So the crafting calculator is 4 pieces of iron plate, a basic circuit board, an ender pole, and some buttons. Perfect. Or I can just buy it from the shop. And seeing as I've got a load of coins that I'm not actually using, I'm just going to buy one. Now, what I love about the crafting calculator, if we open it up, is it makes trying to figure out how much you need for doing batches of stuff significantly easier. So what I want to do is, there's a quest which basically asks for 64 of these. So I want 64 of these. So the recipe, once you've added it in from JEI, if you click on it and click plus, it will say, right, one integrated circuit, you need a crafting table, we do. You need 2 resistors, 1 wrought iron plate, 2 vacuum tubes, 1 basic circuit board, and 3 red alloy cable. So we hit save, and that's what it said. Right, for resistors though, now because we've got the assembling machine, we could do this recipe, which is much easier. So 4 fine copper wire, 1 copper wire, and 1 coal dust. I think coal dust, I think I would prefer to use the charcoal dust one. It's just a personal preference. So we click all that and we hit save. It says right now I need 1 wrought iron plate, 2 vacuum tubes, 1 basic circuit board, 3 red alloy cable, 200 millibuckets of glue, some 4 fine cable for copper, and it or dictionaried the charcoal dust. So I can go through and say, right, for my wrought iron plates, it's just my bending machine. Add that in and hit save. So now I just need wrought iron, and wrought iron is that in the forge hammer, and hot iron is just that smelted. So it says, right, I just need that. We're going to do the assembly recipe for this, and we're going to use the fine copper wire. So we add that in. Basic circuit boards, again, assembler recipe, copper foils and wood planks and glue, because it's a bit cheaper. Red alloy cable. Let's not use either of those. Let's use this one instead because, you know, it's a lot easier. Put that in. Fine copper wires, just that in the copper, the wire mill, and copper wire is just that in there. What else to do? That's okay. Program circuits, we can ignore the program circuits because we've already got those all sorted out. Paper. Now I have a chemical bath, and I'm going to use this recipe because I hated going backwards and forwards. So that's water and sawdust. And glass tubes. I found something quite interesting. So we've got 2 recipes for glass tubes. We can use 1 piece of glass dust and the ball mould in the alloy smelter, and that gives us 1 tube. Brilliant. Or I could use an ingot's worth of liquid glass and the ball mould, and it gives me a glass tube. Okay, so if I go into the liquid glass and you get my fluid extractor, how much do I get from my glass dust? Well, if I put glass dust in the liquid in the fluid extractor, it's an LV recipe, I get a bucket's worth. So what's that? Just shy of 7? I could get 7 of those glass tubes from 1 glass dust. Or I could just get 1 from 1 glass dust. So I think we know which recipe we'll be using, and that's this one. And then where it says liquid glass, we'll go into this and we'll go like that. And for glass dust, it's just that and that. Right, copper foils. We've got our cluster mill, so that can all go in there. Wood planks is just in our compressor. Rubber foils, again, we'll get that from our cluster mill recipe. Red alloy wire mill recipe for that one. Copper ingots, that's base. Water, that's base. Dust. I think this one is pulverizing a plank. Let's see if I've got the recipe here. Not a plank, a log. And hopefully this will yeah. Okay. And what else do we need? Copper plates. Well, again, we can put that through our metal bender. You can see it's now starting to tally up to the amount of copper we need, the amount of red alloy we need. Right, rubber sheets. That's from our fluid solidifier. Tells me how much rubber I need. For rubber, we know that's our chemical reactor of that and that. Okay. What else? Sand dust. Might as well put that in as a recipe. but we're only going to get one sand dust because we've only got one. We'll change that, and flint dust is just flint. So this is basically what we would need. A raw rubber pulp, we can just do a centrifuge of that. So this is what we'd basically need for one. So if we want 64, just put in 64, you can now see how much we would need of everything. I've just realised red alloy. I'm just going to see if there's been an update on this. Yeah. Copper and redstone, liquid redstone in the blast furnace could do it. 6 seconds, or it's back to this one. We'll just use this one for the time being. Red alloy is... it's just copper and redstone, isn't it? Ah, here we are. 4 millibuckets of that and that. Equals one of that. That didn't actually save too well, did it? Why is that? Oh yeah, because I need that one first. And then this one. Nope. Molten copper, redstone. Oh yeah, so it has done that one. So that's how much we'd need for our 64 circuits. So we need 136 copper, 79 sticky resin, 64 iron, 19 flint. How much sand I need? Oh, 19 sand dust. So that's not an impossible target now. The one obviously downside of this calculator is it does take each of these things which are not consumable and just totals them up. But I can live with that if I'm honest. So I am going off to grab all those components, run them through the various stages, and when we come back we should be in a position to start making our 64 integrated circuits. The other great thing about this, see this little button here, if you click on that it will detect what you already have in your inventory and just say, okay, you don't need that or you don't need that. I keep it on sometimes as long as I've got an empty inventory, because that way it all works. But if you do multiple recipes you can get yourself confused, because it'll say, oh, you've already got those, and you go off to make them and it doesn't quite work. But yeah, I think we are now in a good place, so I will go make up my 64 integrated circuits, and when we come back we'll have another quest off the list and we can start moving on to a better way of doing circuits. So I hope you join me soon. Okay, so I have done the bulk of the constructions. We've got 64 basic circuit boards, 128 vacuum tubes, 32 wrought iron plates, and I'm just finishing off these here. The slowest part is unfortunately the red alloy cables. So they're taking a little bit longer than I'd hoped for. But they are still progressing quite nicely. The great thing is I've used pretty much machines and the alloy smelter throughout for all of this. The smeltery rather than the alloy smelter to make all of this stuff. So if you go back to like when we first started trying to make these circuits, everything was done by hand. It took a lot of time. It was incredibly inefficient. And now we're on the cusp of making a full stack of these integrated circuits in relatively short time. I think it's taken me probably 30 minutes or so real time between cuts to just get everything. That's with moving stuff backwards and forwards, which isn't great, but at the end of the day it's a lot better than if I was trying to do a stack of these by hand and then going backwards and forwards, burning through tools. It just doesn't even bear thinking about. Some things I found out whilst doing this. So to make the sticky resin, it keeps on doing that. Sticky resin is slime balls, and we know that slime balls are available from slime blocks, which you can get via milk and a mushroom in a stone barrel to get slime block. You can also do it in a chemical bath. So you could just get milk, put that in, put your mushrooms in, and you get a slime block plus a slime ball. So you get extra for it. And you get the bonus of not random spawning slimes, which you then got to go and kill off because they get really annoying. So again, that made things significantly faster. Paper. So paper before, when we were doing this, was 1 bucket water and 1, 2, 3, 4 wood chippings or wood pulp or whatever else. Now it's 100 millibuckets of water and 1 wood chipping gives me paper. Again, significantly more efficient. So if I take those chips I've got there, and we go for an integrated circuit, how many can I make just off that one batch? So, right, that's 21 made relatively easy. And as these things move on, you know, as we get them all finished, etc., we're going to be in such a better place to be able to have a full stack of integrated circuits, which is perfect, except if we go to our quest book, after we've done that quest, it says about here our first MV circuit, which means a small pile of gallium dust to make a diode to make a primitive assembly. Okay, and then the basic circuit assembling machine comes up next. And what would you use a basic circuit assembly machine? To make the second LV circuit, which if we look is just resistors, capacitors, copper wire, a good phenolic circuit board, and a central processing unit. So they're going to be additional machines we're going to need in our circuit assembler, but we're not doing it by hand anymore. We're not going to the crafting table to make these up. And if we look at future recipes on this, is this one better? I don't know. I thought there was a... There might be actually later on down the line. Let's go LV circuits. Yep, helps if I could spell. So the basic LV electronic circuit and the refined processor, I think, is the top one. Yeah, this gives us 4. So we get 4 of these. The magnetoresonatic circuit. Don't know what this one is, but you get 4 of those as well. But it looks significantly more complicated. Soldering alloy, primitive magnetoresonatic circuit. Is that LV? Yeah, it is LV. So yeah, when we get to the refined circuit, then circuits become significantly easier to make, but obviously there's a lot more steps involved to get to the necessary components. So whilst this is being made, we're getting our stacks up, I think what we're going to try and do is make up a diode and get our first circuit. So if we go to our quest book, we'll add that in there. So we're going to need 4 of our integrated logic circuits. Good thing we're just making a stack of those. We're going to need diodes, 1 of those. And we're going to need some gallium. Now, gallium is from tiny piles of gallium. And I found a recipe. Where was it? An LV recipe for making this. Ah yes, impure piles of zinc will give me zinc dust and tiny piles of gallium. Now, actually wasn't, it was sphalerite I was using. So, did I make up any sphalerites? Phosphor. Right. I thought I had some sphalerite. I do. It's down on the other doohickey. Where are we? Sphalerite. There we are. Sphalerite. So what we can do with sphalerite is we can just turn it into zinc, which is not what we want to do, but we can pulverize it to crush sphalerite. That gives us crushed. If we put them through our forge hammer, that gives us the impure pile of sphalerite. And if we then take that impure pile of sphalerite and stick that through our centrifuge, then we will be able to do stuff. Sorry, brain is elsewhere. So I'm just going to take some phosphor dust. Don't think that smelts. It doesn't. Good. So that'll block up the machine, stop it processing. So if we run the sphalerite through, meanwhile, that's another stack of these done. So let's make our integrated circuit. So 11 of those. So that's 32. Right, so that shouldn't do anything. And we're getting our impure pile of this. And once that's done, I'm going to pop this through the centrifuge. Let that do its thing. I really should empty out that raw rubber pulp. One thing I did say in the previous episode was I was going to look at the process for making gold. I came a bit unstuck. Because the problem with gold, when I was going through the process, and I'm not sure if this is intended, but if I look at gold dust, and we'll go for the chemical reactor, and one of the things we need is chloroauric acid. Great. So for that we need aqua regia and sulfuric acid. Aqua regia requires nitric acid and hydrochloric acid. Nitric acid, that's relatively simple. Chemical reactor of water and nitrogen dioxide. Oh, wait, that's a HV recipe. Ah, we've got an LV one here. Ammonia and oxygen. Great. So that's the one I need. So with ammonia, all I need to do is distill fermented biomass, and that gives me my ammonia. But the problem is, that's an MV recipe. So to try and do that, at LV, it's not going to work. So I had a look for LV recipes, and there is, was it this one or this one? Yeah, the reprecipitated rhodium dust. And I looked through all the different steps of this, using rhodium filter cake solution, which required filter cake dust, in a large mixer or a standard mixer. The filter cake dust was, I think, sifted from rhodium nitrate dust. Rhodium nitrate dust, tiny piles of that. Again, I found a way of doing it. I think it was a large chemical reactor or something. Yeah. Sodium nitrate and such like. Went back to basically making end stone to get, I think it was platinum dust. Let's just see what the stuff on that is. So end stone, use for this, crush it, sieve it. Yeah, I think it was platinum metallic powder or chunk, which I could then use for various things to try and get to that point. But the chance of getting the necessary stuff from the sifting was incredibly low, to the point where I thought, you know, it's really not worth that amount of effort and machines to try and do it at the LV stage. What we should be focusing on is getting up to MV. So there's going to be a slight delay whilst we get ourselves upgraded to MV. I've got to get this in the right place. Right, so that's my small pile of gallium. So, oh yeah, I've got the calculator open this way. So the diode is just some fine copper wire and gallium and some glass panes. Now I've got glass. Do I have anything else? So I want 6 glass panes. Copper. I do have some of that. I think just one piece of copper should do it through the copper mill. Is that done? Just say, I'm sure I'm missing something, and it was this thing here. And there we go. We now have completed this one. We have made our integrated logic circuits. And I get 103 coins for that. So I'm quite pleased with that one. Right, so we've got that. Now, is this a standard recipe? Of course not. That would be too easy. Right, so diode. Okay. Apparently Chinese or Japanese glass. Not sure that's what they intended, but I'm not going to argue. Gives me my glass panes. And I think it's that. Gives me a diode. And then the last one we need is some wrought iron plates and some red alloy cable. So I'm going to quickly pause, get some more red alloy cable, get some wrought iron plates, and when we come back we'll wrap that up by getting our first MV circuit, and then we'll talk about what we're going to do next. Okay, so that should be everything now. So click on this, and that's our first MV circuit done. So I've got two projects I want to focus on. Getting the basic circuit assembly machine is going to be quite important for using that for getting our next basic, the basic electronic circuit. But there's a lot of things like CPUs that need to be made, good phenolic circuit boards, capacitors, etc. So we're going to investigate what's the requirement for those. The other thing is power. So I have been burning through charcoal like nobody's business, and it is getting quite frustrating. So one of the things I'm going to do, and one of the things I wanted the greenhouse for, is I want to try and use methane as a power source. So using gas turbines and carrots predominantly, hence the field of carrots down here, to power up some gas turbines to use that for our power supply. But I want to do it in an automated fashion. I don't want to be there moving stuff backwards and forwards. So I think what I would do in our next episode is we'll focus on trying to build an automated, hopefully self-contained, I don't think it is from my testing, gas turbine loop. So we can actually move away from using charcoal and use methane as our fuel source. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Again, I can only apologise, it's been a long gap between episodes. Unfortunately, I am but a human who is subject to these annoying little bugs. But if you did enjoy this episode, please feel free to give it a like. If you'd like to see more episodes, then please feel free to subscribe. Until then, I wish you a very pleasant day. Goodbye.